Welcome back to Easy English Talks podcast. I think we all want to manage our money better, right, R?
Absolutely. And today we're going on a deep dive into how to manage your money. Like the people who always seem to have a lot of it.
You know the ones, they always seem to be doing well financially.
Exactly. And the good news is you don't have to be super rich to use these strategies.
That's good to hear, because I'm definitely interested.
We'll break it down in a way that makes sense for everyone, especially if you're still learning English.
That's what we do here at Easy English Talks podcast. So where do we even start with managing our money like the pros?
Well, there's a simple system called the 15-65-20 rule that can really make a difference.
Okay, 15, 65, 20. I like that it's easy to remember.
It helps you divide your income into three main buckets. Think of it like this.
Like 3 jars for my money?
Yeah, exactly. The first jar or bucket is for savings.
Savings, that makes sense.
Yeah.
We all hear about saving for a rainy day.
Right. 15% of your income goes into the savings bucket.
15%. Okay,
Right.
and that's for like emergencies.
Exactly for those unexpected things that life throws our way.
Like a flat tire or a sudden doctor's bill.
Exactly. Those things can really stress you out if you don't have any savings.
So how much should we aim to have in our savings bucket?
The goal is to build an emergency fund that can cover at least 3 to 6 months
3 to 6 months of what?
of your essential expenses, things like rent, groceries, utilities, the absolute necessities.
Okay, so not things like new shoes or going out to fancy dinners.
No, those are extras. We'll get to that later.
So this emergency fund is really about covering those must-have costs.
Right. So if something unexpected happens, you can deal with the problem, not just worry about how to pay for it.
That peace of mind is priceless, really. Okay, so we've got 15% for savings. What about the other 2 buckets?
The second bucket is for fundamental expenses, and this is where 65% of your income goes.
65%, that seems like a lot.
It might sound like a lot, but think about it.
This covers all the things I need to live my everyday life.
Housing, transportation, food bills, basically all those everyday things.
But isn't it easy to let those expenses creep up as you start making more money?
Oh, absolutely. It's tempting to want a bigger apartment or a nicer car when you have a bit more cash.
It's like you want to upgrade your lifestyle.
Exactly. And that's what we call lifestyle creep, and it can really sabotage your financial goals.
So that's why it's important to set a firm limit even if you start earning more.
Right. That 65% helps you stay disciplined and avoid overspending.
Looking back at the material we've been studying, I see housing and transportation are often the biggest expenses.
You're right. They can easily eat up a big chunk of your income.
So it makes sense to really look at those costs and see if you can optimize them.
Exactly. Can you negotiate a lower rent or find a cheaper way to commute?
Those little changes can really add up over time.
And remember, it's not about depriving yourself. It's about giving yourself more financial freedom.
So you have more money to enjoy life. And that brings us to the third bucket.
Ah, yes, the fun bucket.
20% of our income dedicated to guilt-free enjoyment. Tell me more.
This is for all the things you love. Hobbies, travel, entertainment, whatever brings you joy.
So even the wealthy folks budget for fun.
Of course they do. Everyone needs to enjoy their money.
It's like if you're on a super strict diet and you never let yourself have any treats.
Eventually, you'll probably crack and binge on everything.
Exactly. It's all about balance.
By allowing yourself to have some fun within your budget, you're actually more likely to stick to your financial goals in the long run.
That makes sense. So what are some things we could do with our 20% guilt-free enjoyment money?
Well, it depends on what you enjoy. Maybe a nice dinner out with friends.
Ooh, or a weekend trip, or buying that new bag you've had your eye on.
Exactly. It's your money. You get to choose how you want to enjoy it.
I love that. So we've got our budget sorted with the 15-65-20 rule, but managing money isn't just about budgeting, is it?
You're right. We also need to make our money work for us, and that's where investing comes in.
Investing, that always seemed a bit intimidating to me, especially as an English learner.
It doesn't have to be scary. One of the most important concepts to understand is compound interest.
Compound interest, that sounds a bit complicated. Can you explain it in a simple way?
Imagine you plant a seed in the garden. Over time, that seed grows into a plant which produces more seeds, and those seeds grow into more plants.
So you end up with a whole garden full of plants from just one seed.
Right, and compound interest is similar. It's like your money is growing more money.
So it's not just the money I initially invest that grows, but also the interest I earn on that money, which starts earning even more interest. My mind is blown.
It's like a snowball effect.
But wouldn't someone who invests a lot of money later on end up with more than someone who invested a smaller amount much earlier?
Not necessarily. Let's say we have 2 people, Janet and Mike.
Okay, Jan and Mike.
Janet starts investing a small amount regularly from a young age.
Okay, she's starting early.
Mike, on the other hand, waits until he's older and then starts investing a much larger amount each year.
So he's putting in more money, but
Good.
starting later.
Exactly, and you might think Mike would end up with more because he's investing more overall.
That's what I would have thought.
But guess what? Even though Mike invests more overall, Janet ends up with more money
Really? Why is that?
because she started earlier and let her investments grow over a longer period of time. That's the magic of compound interest.
Wow, that's amazing. Time really is money when it comes to investing.
Exactly, the earlier you start, the better.
So where's the best place for someone just starting out to begin investing? It can all seem a bit overwhelming.
Don't worry, there are a few beginner-friendly options that can get you started on the right foot.
Okay, tell me more.
One option is your workplace retirement plan.
Oh yeah, a lot of companies offer those, but I'm not really sure how they work.
They're a great way to start investing because many employers offer something called an employer match.
An employer match, what's that?
This means that for every pound or dollar you contribute to your retirement savings, your employer will also contribute a certain amount. It's basically free money.
Free money. I'm listening. What's the catch?
Well, there are usually some conditions attached, like your employer might only match contributions up to a certain percentage of your salary.
So it's like they're giving me a bonus for saving for retirement.
Exactly, and it's a fantastic way to boost your savings without much effort.
I need to check if my company offers this.
Yeah.
Okay, so workplace retirement plans are a good place to start. What other options are there?
Another great option, especially for beginners, is a tax-advantaged account.
I've heard of those, but I've always been a bit confused about how they work.
They're designed to encourage people to save and invest for the future, especially for retirement. And they come with special tax advantages.
Tax advantage, that sounds good, but can you explain it in a simple way?
Essentially, these accounts allow your investments to grow without being taxed as heavily as they would be in a regular investment account.
So I end up paying less in taxes, which means more of my money stays invested and working for me.
You got it. It's a way to keep more of your hard-earned money.
That sounds like a good deal. Are there different types of these tax-advantaged accounts?
Yes, there are some accounts allow you to contribute money before taxes are taken out of your paycheck, which reduces your taxable income.
And then there are other accounts that let your investments grow tax-free.
Exactly, so you won't owe any taxes on the profits when you eventually withdraw the money.
So depending on the type of account, you either get a tax break now or a tax break later. Either way, it seems like a smart way to invest.
It definitely is, but once you have this special account set up, what do you actually invest in?
That's a good question. Stocks, bonds, real estate, gold, so many options.
All of those are possibilities, but for someone just starting out, I often recommend passive funds.
Passive funds, that's a new one for me. What are those exactly?
A passive fund is like a basket of different investments, usually stocks that track a particular market index. Think of it like owning a tiny piece of hundreds of different companies all at once.
So instead of trying to pick individual stocks, which sounds risky, I could invest in a fund that spreads my money across lots of different companies.
Exactly. Spreading your money across many different investments is called diversification, and it's a key strategy for managing risk.
Don't put all your eggs in one basket, as they say.
Exactly. And who manages these passive funds? Well, that's one of the best things about them. They're designed to be low cost because they don't require a lot of active management. They simply track a specific market index.
So less work for the fund managers and lower fees for me.
Precisely. It's all about maximizing your returns. But it's not just about fees. You also want to look at the fund's track record.
You mean how the fund has performed in the past? Kind of like checking their references.
Right. While past performance doesn't guarantee future returns, it can give us a general idea of how the fund has weathered different market conditions.
Makes sense. So passive funds sound pretty straightforward and efficient. But do I need to constantly check my investments and make changes based on what's happening in the market?
That's another great thing about passive funds. They're what we call a set it and forget it approach. You can set up automatic contributions and let your investments grow over time without constantly tinkering or trying to time the market.
So no need to become a financial expert or spend hours researching stocks. I can relax and let the fund do the work for me.
Exactly. It's a great way to start investing without getting overwhelmed.
I like the sound of that.
Yeah.
We've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive. We talked about creating a budget, building an emergency fund, and even dipped our toes into the world of investing.
We sure have. It's a lot to take in.
What would you say are the main takeaways so far?
I think the most important thing to remember is that managing your money well is not about some secret formula. It's about applying simple but powerful principles consistently over time. It's like building a house.
Okay, I like that analogy. How is it like building a house?
You start with a solid foundation and then keep adding bricks one by one.
So you don't build a house overnight, and you don't build wealth overnight either.
Exactly. It takes patience, discipline, and a willingness to keep learning and growing.
And starting is often the hardest part. But once you get going, you gain momentum and start seeing results. It's like that feeling of accomplishment when you finally tidy up a messy room.
I love that. It motivates you to keep things organized in the future.
So true. And when it comes to our finances, it's about feeling empowered to make decisions that create a life we love.
Absolutely. Financial well-being is not just about how much money you have. It's about feeling in control of your finances and making choices that align with your values and goals.
I completely agree. And this is just the beginning.
We're just getting started. We'll be back for part 2 of our deep dive into managing your money.
Make sure you tune in. We'll be exploring even more strategies that can help you take control of your finances and build the life you want.
Welcome back to Easy English Talks podcast.
It's great to be back with you all for part 2 of our deep dive into managing your money like the pros.
Last time we talked about getting that budget sorted out. Remember the 15-65-20 rule?
Oh yeah, that was a good one. 15% for savings, 65% for essential expenses, and then 20% just for fun, guilt-free spending.
Exactly. And we started talking about how to make that money grow through investing. And one of the easiest ways to do that is with passive funds.
Yeah, I remember we touched on passive funds, but I'm still a bit fuzzy on the details. Can we dive a bit deeper into those?
Absolutely. Passive funds are a popular choice for investors of all levels, beginners and experienced alike. They're really quite straightforward.
Okay, straightforward is good because I think for a lot of us, especially those of us learning English, all the financial jargon can be a bit overwhelming.
Totally. So let's break it down in a way that's easy to understand. A passive fund is basically like a big basket full of different stocks, all kinds of companies bundled together.
Okay, I'm picturing a big basket full of stocks.
Now, this basket of stocks is designed to track a particular market index.
A market index, what's that?
Think of it like a benchmark that measures how well a group of stocks is performing. It's like a snapshot of the overall market.
Ah, okay, so like if we're looking at the stock market for the United Kingdom, we could have an index that tracks the performance of the top 100 companies.
Exactly. Like the FTSE 100. You got it. Or if we're looking at the American stock market, we might track the S&P 500, which includes 500 of the largest publicly traded companies in the U.S.
So if I invest in a passive fund that tracks the S&P 500, I'm basically investing in a tiny piece of all those 500 companies.
Precisely. Instead of trying to pick individual winning stocks, which can be really tricky, you're spreading your risk across a whole bunch of different companies.
Makes sense. It's like that old saying, don't put all your eggs in one basket.
You got it. Diversification. That's the key with passive funds, and that's why they're considered less risky than investing in just a handful of individual stocks. So, are you with me so far?
I think so. It's like instead of trying to be a stock-picking genius, we're just hitching our wagon to the overall performance of a particular market.
Exactly. We're betting on the long-term growth of the market as a whole. Now, once we understand the basics of how they work, how do we go about choosing the right passive fund for us?
Yeah, that's a good question because it seems like there are tons of different passive funds out there.
You're right, there are. So there are a few things to keep in mind when choosing a passive fund. The first one is, what index does it track?
Right, so if I'm interested in investing in companies in the UK, I'd look for a fund that tracks the FTSE 100 index.
Exactly. And if you were more interested in emerging markets like companies in developing countries, you'd look for a fund that focuses on those markets.
Okay, the index helps us narrow down our options, but I imagine there are still lots of funds that track the same index. What else should we consider?
Another important factor to consider is the expense ratio of the fund.
Expense ratio. I don't think we've talked about that yet. What is it exactly?
It's basically the annual fee you pay for having your money managed within the fund. Think of it like a small percentage of your investment that goes towards covering the costs of running the fund.
So if a fund has an expense ratio of 1%, that means I'm paying 1% of my investment each year to the people who manage the fund.
Exactly. And those fees can really eat into your returns over time, so it's smart to look for funds with low expense ratios.
So the lower the expense ratio, the better, because it means more of my money is actually working for me and growing.
Precisely.
Yeah.
We want those returns, but it's not just about the fees. We also want to look at the fund's track record.
Oh, you mean how the fund has performed in the past, like checking its grades in school.
Exactly. We want to see if the fund has consistently delivered good returns over time. Of course, past performance doesn't guarantee future results, but it can give us a general idea of how the fund has handled different market conditions like booms and busts.
Makes sense. It's like doing a little background check before we entrust our hard-earned money to a particular fund.
Exactly. It's about doing our due diligence. We want to make sure they have a good track record of growing their investors' money.
This is all really helpful, but I have to admit, it can still feel a bit overwhelming. I mean, there's so much information out there. Where can we go for guidance when making these decisions about passive funds?
Don't worry, you don't have to figure it out all on your own. There are tons of great resources available to help you navigate the world of investing.
Like what? Where should we start?
Well, a lot of online investment platforms, like those where you buy and sell stocks, offer educational resources and tools designed specifically for beginners.
Oh, that's good to know. I was picturing having to read those really complicated financial reports.
You don't have to do that. These platforms often have user-friendly guides and even videos explaining the basics of investing in simple language. They really try to make it accessible for everyone.
That sounds much more approachable. What if we want more personalized advice? Like from a real person?
Then you might consider talking to a financial advisor.
Oh, yeah, like a financial expert who can give us tailored advice.
Exactly. A financial advisor can help you create a personalized investment plan based on your specific goals, risk tolerance, and time horizon. They can guide you through the process and answer any questions you have.
It's like having a financial coach in your corner. That's reassuring.
Exactly. But just make sure to choose an advisor who is a fiduciary.
A fiduciary? What's that?
It means they're legally obligated to put your best interests first. They won't recommend something that's not suitable for you just to earn a commission.
Ah, that's really important. We need to be able to trust the advice we're getting.
Absolutely. Choosing a fiduciary advisor ensures that you're getting unbiased and trustworthy guidance. So remember, investing doesn't have to be complicated.
Right. With passive funds, we can build a diversified portfolio and benefit from the growth of the market without needing to become a Wall Street expert.
Exactly. It's like having a team of professionals working behind the scenes to help your money grow. Now, let's shift gears a bit and talk about the bigger picture of financial planning. How does investing fit into our overall financial strategy?
Okay, that's a good question. Yes, investing is just one piece of the puzzle.
You're right. Investing is important, but it's not the whole story. We need a solid financial plan to guide us towards our financial goals, whatever those goals might be.
So what's the first step in creating a financial plan? Where do we start?
It all starts with defining your goals. What do you want to achieve with your money?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I guess it depends on our individual circumstances and priorities. Some people might want to save for a down payment on a house, while others might be focused on paying off student loans.
Exactly. Some common goals include saving for retirement, buying a home, paying off debt, or funding your children's education. It's about figuring out what's important to you and then creating a roadmap to get there.
So it's like setting a destination for our financial journey. Once we've identified our goals, what's next?
The next step is to create a budget to track your income and expenses. Remember the 15-65-20 rule we talked about earlier?
Oh, yeah, that can be a helpful framework for budgeting, making sure we're allocating our money wisely.
Right. It gives us a good starting point. But remember, life is always changing, so we need to review our budget regularly and make adjustments as needed.
Our income might go up or down, or our expenses might change. It's important to be flexible and adapt our budget to our current situation.
Absolutely. Another crucial aspect of financial planning is managing debt.
Ugh, debt. Yeah, that can be a real drag on our finances.
It's true. Debt can really hold us back from achieving our financial goals, but the good news is that there are strategies to help us pay it off more effectively.
Like, what are some of those strategies?
Well, there's the snowball method where you focus on paying off the smallest debts first to build momentum and motivation. Then you use the money you're putting towards that small debt to tackle the next smallest debt and so on. Kind of like a snowball rolling downhill, getting bigger and bigger.
Okay, I've heard of that one. What other methods are there?
Another popular method is the avalanche method, where you prioritize the debts with the highest interest rates to save money in the long run.
Ah, so you're attacking the most expensive debt first.
Exactly. It can save you a lot of money in interest payments over time.
It's helpful to know that there are different approaches to debt management. We can choose the one that best suits our situation.
Exactly. And remember, seeking professional advice from a financial advisor can be invaluable when it comes to managing debt. They can help you create a customized plan and stay on track.
Okay, so budget sorted debt under control. Now what? What other pieces of the financial planning puzzle are we missing?
Don't forget about insurance. It's essential to protect ourselves against financial risks.
Oh, yeah, insurance. It's one of those things we hope we never have to use, but it's crucial to have it just in case.
Exactly. There are different types of insurance, like health insurance to cover medical expenses, life insurance to provide for your loved ones if something happens to you, and property insurance to protect your home and belongings.
Right. Having adequate insurance coverage can provide peace of mind knowing that we're protected in case of those unexpected events in life.
Exactly. And finally, let's not neglect estate planning.
Estate planning. What exactly is that? I'm not sure I've ever heard of that before.
It's about making sure your assets are distributed according to your wishes after you're gone.
Ah, I see. So it involves things like writing a will and designating beneficiaries for our bank accounts and retirement savings.
You got it. It's important to plan for the future and ensure that our loved ones are taken care of even after we're no longer around.
It's not the most cheerful topic to think about, but it's definitely something we should consider, especially as we get older and our financial situation becomes more complex.
You're right. It's about being responsible and proactive and ensuring that our wishes are carried out.
Wow. We've covered a lot of ground in this episode, from passive funds to budgeting to debt management to insurance and even estate planning. It's clear that financial planning is a pretty big topic.
It is a big topic. It's really a holistic journey, a lifelong process of learning and adapting.
It's about taking control of our finances, making informed decisions that align with our values and aspirations.
And by seeking guidance when we need it and staying committed to our goals, we can create a solid financial foundation for ourselves and our families.
I'm definitely feeling inspired to take action and put all these strategies into practice. I think we've given our listeners a lot to think about and act on.
That's great. Remember, financial well-being is not just about accumulating wealth. It's about living a fulfilling life within our means and feeling confident about our financial future.
Well said. I'm feeling much more empowered to take control of my finances and make decisions that will create the life I want.
That's fantastic. And remember, we'll be back for part 3 of our deep dive to explore one final but incredibly important aspect of managing your money like the pros.
Stay tuned to find out what it is. Welcome back to Easy English Talks podcast.
It's great to be here for the final part of our deep dive into managing your money.
We've talked about a lot of practical stuff like setting up a budget, saving for emergencies, and even investing in those passive funds we discussed.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground. But today, we're going to explore something that's just as important as all those practical strategies.
Oh, what's that? More secret formulas.
Uh-huh. Today, we're going to talk about your mindset.
Mindset. How does that relate to managing money? Isn't it all about numbers and spreadsheets?
Well, numbers and spreadsheets are definitely important, but have you ever noticed how some people just seem to attract wealth effortlessly?
Yeah, like it just flows to them. And then there are others who struggle no matter how hard they try. It's like they're always one step behind.
Exactly. And it's not always about how much money they make either. It often boils down to their mindset, their beliefs, and attitudes towards money.
So you're saying our thoughts about money can actually influence our financial outcomes?
Absolutely. If we have negative beliefs about money, like thinking it's scarce or that we're not good with it, those beliefs can become self-fulfilling prophecies.
I can see that. If you believe you're not good with money, you might avoid dealing with your finances altogether.
Exactly. Or you might make impulsive decisions that reinforce that belief, like overspending or getting into debt.
It's like a vicious cycle.
Right. But on the flip side, if we cultivate a positive money mindset, we can open ourselves up to greater financial success.
Okay, I'm all for a positive mindset, but how do we actually develop one when it comes to money?
Well, the first step is to become aware of our current beliefs about money. What messages did we receive about money growing up? What are our deep-seated fears or assumptions?
That's a good point. Our early experiences with money and the messages we absorb from our families and society can really shape our financial beliefs.
Exactly. For example, if you grew up hearing things like, money doesn't grow on trees, or we can't afford that, you might develop a scarcity mindset around money.
It's like you start to believe there's never enough to go around.
Right. But once we've identified any limiting beliefs, we can start to challenge them and reframe them in a more positive light.
So for example, if I have a belief that rich people are all greedy and dishonest, I could consciously choose to focus on examples of wealthy individuals who are generous and use their wealth to make a positive impact on the world.
Exactly. There are tons of examples of philanthropists and social entrepreneurs who are using their wealth for good. It's about challenging those stereotypes and embracing a more balanced view of wealth.
So it's about shifting our perspective from one of scarcity to one of abundance. What are some other practical tips for cultivating a positive money mindset? Like, how do we actually put this into practice?
One simple but powerful practice is to focus on your strengths and accomplishments. Instead of dwelling on past financial mistakes, celebrate your wins no matter how small.
Oh, I like that. It's easy to get caught up in negative self-talk like, I'm so bad with money, or I'll never be able to save enough.
Right, but acknowledging your progress can boost your confidence and motivation. Did you stick to your budget this month? Did you manage to save a little extra? Celebrate those
It's
wins.
like giving yourself a pat on the back for making progress.
Exactly. And another tip is to surround yourself with positive influences. Seek out mentors or role models who have a healthy relationship with money. Join online communities or groups where people are supportive and encouraging.
It's true the people we spend time with can really rub off on us. If we're constantly surrounded by negativity, it can be hard to stay positive and focused on our goals.
And finally, remember that building wealth is a marathon, not a sprint. It takes time and effort.
So we need to be patient and persistent and not get discouraged by setbacks. Everyone makes mistakes along the way.
Exactly. It's like learning a new skill or building a business. It takes practice, dedication, and a willingness to learn from our mistakes.
This has been an amazing deep dive. We started with practical budgeting tips, explored the world of investing, and now we're wrapping up with the importance of a positive money mindset.
And I hope our listeners feel empowered to take control of their finances and create the life they want. It's not about becoming a millionaire overnight. It's about making small, consistent changes that add up over time.
It's like that saying, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
Exactly. And with the right mindset and strategies, anyone can achieve financial well-being.
Absolutely. It's been so great having you on the show to share your insights on this topic.
It's been my pleasure.
And thank you to all our listeners for joining us on this deep dive into managing your money like the pros. We hope you found it helpful.
Remember, it's not about how much money you make, it's about how you manage it and the beliefs you hold about it.
Well said. Don't forget to subscribe to Easy English Talks podcast for more conversations on personal finance and other topics to help you improve your English skills.
Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep those finances flowing.